Welcome to Short Scale Modelling. This is part 11 of Revell's Vasa scale is 1 to 50, and it's also part 4 of the rigging. In this part, I'm going to be concentrating on the rigging from the foremast to the mainmast. So that's going to be detailing with the mainstay, the gallant stays, and finishing off with the royal stay. That's the part of the rigging right at the top. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. To start off with, and fitting some of the back stays. Now these are anchored from the pulley blocks in between the mast here, and I'm just threading them through the top mast cap. There's little holes that this can go through. If it is a bit tight like this one is, I'm just using my threader just to poke it in, so it's just easier to get the thread cord up. A lot of this is done sort of like a little bit out of camera, unfortunately, because of the nature of my setup. But hopefully you can just about make out what's going on. If I just bring up the instructions here, you can see which area I'm working on here. If you can see that sort of fanned area, it's very similar to the one I done on the bowl spray. So I've got to make up these little connections before I can put the mainstays on. Like in the last video, I'm building this fan here. It's quite simple. It's just 4 lengths of cord put together, then tied into a loose knot initially. I then have to attach some dead eyes. There's only 2 at this point to make up. And once more, I'm using my threader just to pull the cord through the dead eye. You can see it on the mat there. I've already used it. I'm not going to show you every single time because if you watched the previous video, you would have seen it being used. And once I've got the dead eyes connected to various lengths of cord, I'm placing in one end of it into the loose knot of the 4 in this case, loose ends, and tighten it up. Then I'll tie one strand off to the main piece of cord that's gone through the dead eye, and I'll do this for both sides, so effectively making a T-bar. When that was done and cut off any excess, it's time to attach it initially to the top mast stay. That's going to be the main piece of cord that runs in the middle of the mast from the deck to the middle. Another line that runs just below the top stay, and this gets connected with the dead eye that I've put in place. So effectively I have 2 lines at the top and 1 at the bottom. And once that's in position, I can then start looking at attaching these stays together. So I've just held it into position with a clamp to see where I'm going to go with it first of all. However, I decided to attach the bottom part to the mainstay before actually attaching all the stays anyway. This was to stop excessive pull on the mast while I'm tying knots and things. As you can see, they're bending. If I had them in proper position and taut, there would be a danger of snapping the mast while I'm doing this. And with it being very little room, as you can see, you can't see what's going on because of my hands. But basically what I'm doing is I'm taking each little run from the 4 pointing down and just knotting them individually onto the mainstay. And I've done a few now, and you can see it starting to form. These are quite loose at the moment. I haven't locked them in position because I want to have the function, the availability of moving them around up and down the mainstay until I'm happy with the actual layout of them. It's going to be very difficult to keep these taut anyway. Ideally, I'd want them rigid and taut, but because I'm moving the stays around and the amount of tension that's going to be going on to the dead eyes and so forth, each one's going to exert a different kind amount of pressure, and it will slacken off the one previous I've done. So if you're doing something like this, just be aware some of them may sag. I don't know what the solution is to that. I haven't figured that out. After all these years of doing this, there must be a way to do it, but I haven't figured it out yet. And once they're loosely in place, I can then start tying off the stays. And this is just done once more with some simple knots. And once I've knotted them up and secured them to the mast, I'll just add a little bit of glue just to make sure the knot's not going to come undone when I trim off any excess. Pulling up the instructions once more for the top mainstay. I'll just highlight there with my mouse pointer. You can just about see it. That's as you can see, there's a dead eye that gets attached to it, and this is coming up from the side of the mast with the pulley block system that I put in earlier. It's a simple case fitting these. It's just like all the rest of them. I'm threading it through the cross tree, then up to the top cap, and then bringing it over to the main mast. So now you can see the rigging actually starting to form now that I'm tightening all these up. Now, you can actually do this in one piece of cord all the way through. It's difficult to do, and you need a good length of cord to do it, and you can end up getting knotted and tied up. This is why I do it in stages like this. I can control the tautness of the cord as I'm going along, and not putting too much um, pressure on the mass. If you do it all in one single swoop, sometimes you can bend the mass out of proportion. But as you can see, using clamps and gravity really helps keeping these lines taut as much as possible. But when you tie them off, don't be afraid to leave a little bit of give, and it may slacken off the line slightly, but that can be sorted out. But you need that little bit of give for when you're going on to the next part of the rigging. So when you're putting in the last pieces of rigging, it will all pull taut again. Well, that's the theory anyway. It generally works that way. So as you can see, both are connected to the dead eye, and I'm just doing the last part of this main top stay. And what I do to get a nice tight cord without getting much slippage is just doing a simple loop through and pulling the little bit there like a ratchet just to get the tension that I require. Then I'll just do a single knot at the end of it to secure it. But as you can see there, I was just moving the downward parts of the rigging there. This is why I haven't completely secured them yet, because I will be moving them around until I've done the whole section of this particular section of rigging. And once I've done all that, then I'll start locking everything off. So, but just tip it to the side there, you can see the rigging coming together now. It all looks a bit flat because the shrouds and things are not on yet, so it all looks two-dimensional at the moment. And now I'm starting to work on the main royal stay. This is the one at the very top, and this is exactly like the mainstay. It has two lines, the upper one and the lower one, and that gets connected with a dead eye also. So I'll connect the cord, and then once that's in position, I will thread on the actual dead eye. Now this cord is running from the opposite side of the block and pulley system from the bottom of the mast. So it runs right up the mast, then crosses over to the main mast. You'll find when you're doing this sort of style of rigging, you'll have multiple pieces of cord running up the mast. Depending on how big the ship and how detailed you want it, of course, but there can be at least a dozen going up the mast itself. But the majority of them will actually be for the sails, but that's for another part of the video, which I'll explain when I come to it. So I'm just threading the dead eye here. I should actually point out that this little Deadeye I'm using here is not from the kit itself. This is from my stores. I didn't have the exact right size. These are slightly a bit bigger than the ones that, well, in scale for the kit. I did think about not using them, but I think it's better just to have the block in instead of having none at all and just tying it together with a bit of cord that the instructions are suggesting you do. I'd rather have the block and the pulleys in there to separate the lines than nothing at all. So once more, threading it through the top mast cap, which is leading on to the top gallant mast, and just threading it through to the desired position before tightening everything off. So it's very much the same as the one I previously done. And once I've got it in position, then I can look at tightening up the cord to make sure everything is nice and taut, and I'm happy with the position of it. And this is where I'll end the video. I'm just tightening up everything, cutting off the excesses and getting everything sorted like that. As you point out, this process took about 5-6 hours to do. It's quite a long process to do. So if you are doing it, make sure you allow plenty of time to do it. Obviously, you don't have to do it all in one session, of course. I didn't. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. You'll be updated not only on this build, but all of my future builds. Hit the like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. And of course, you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.